Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Future Quest. Last time, the Impossibles went from trio to quartet as they learned more about where their powers came from and battled a fear agent much like them. While that happened, Ty became the new Mytor, Quest team fought dinosaurs, and Benton was taken by Jezebel Jade. This looks like a job for...
Captain Caveman!
I was gonna say Funky Phantom, but that works too. Issue 7's cover looks fairly dramatic, with Buzz Conroy about to mechanically drop a human-based robot brain into Frankenstein Jr.'s head.
It's alive! Alive!
I've always wanted to say that.
But his mom still won't turn off his laptop's parental controls. Imagine that. An alternate cover sees Birdman and Mytor grappling in the desert, possibly the result of a heated debate over who would win in a fight, Blue Falcon or Thundar the Barbarian. The winner, obviously, would be Two Stupid Dogs.
Oh, isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
We begin in Earth's orbit, where, thanks to the sun apparently exploding, the planet is turning a nice golden brown.
Then you sprinkle the chicken liberally with Old Spice.
The crew of the International Space Station have observed the vortexes holding their various positions for the past 24 hours, reporting as much to a London news outlet. Meanwhile, the UN is holding an emergency meeting, being made aware by Internation of the vortices and Dr. Quest's abduction. While the clandestine group isn't sanctioned by any country, apparently, Falcon 7 nevertheless relays that the entity is extraterrestrial and that each nation should keep the public away and not engage anything passing through the portal until more information avails itself.
If you're not careful, you'll get us all whacked. Body in a wood chipper.
David takes Quest team to the precariously placed cliffside facility for Dr. Kim-Conroy, which Internation set up after the attempted abduction of her son. Don't worry about the kidnappers, but watch out for that first step. It's a Lulu. Johnny seems assured his dad won't be hurt since Fear needs him for something, and how Race or Deva knew that to tell him is anyone's guess, but he's worried about how they left Todd Messick in a jungle full of time-displaced dinosaurs. Haji thinks that since Ugg is so protective of him, he'll be fine. Adequate shelter, food, emergency medical treatment, all things a primordial hominid is absolutely qualified to handle.
From now on, I'll speak like a caveman. You, bad doctors. Me, good doctor. You, follow.
And they didn't just take them both along. Why? An Internation agent has been dispatched with supplies, and to help look for the boy's missing parents, so there's that, I guess. Jan chimes in. When we find your father, Johnny, my brother will probably be there too. Thanks, Jan. Thanks for what? Letting him know you're not the only one with missing family? And while we, the reader, knew that Jace was being held by Fear, nothing so far has tipped off our heroes to that fact. As soon as they walk inside, there's one of Zin's spider bots, and Race opens fire. Only for Linda to rush in and clarify it's her robot, the design of which Zin apparently ripped off. Not that I'm some big, entrenched fan of the Johnny Quest series, but I'll admit to some mixed feelings about this. The doc here makes it seem like stealing other people's ideas was a thing Zin was known for, and that risks diminishing both his intellect and his threat as a villain. And if a villain isn't compelling, what good are they as a foil to our heroes? In any event, the facility is on high alert as intruders were caught earlier. Linda reacquaints herself with Johnny, officially meets his brother Haji for the first time, and he responds that Johnny is his brother, which may supposed to be some kind of cutesy familial in-joke, but feels like awkward semantics to me. Race mentions the reason Benton had called Internation in the first place was based on the good word of Kim-Conroy, how they didn't pressure scientists or interfere with their work. They really empathize with us, too. Why, just the other day, a guy named Knuckles said what a shame it'd be if I didn't finish the neutron cannon next week and that it somehow led to my legs getting broke. Real sweetheart, that guy. They take a lift to check out the culmination of Linda's work. Gargantuan, an enormous robot designed to deal with catastrophes that would otherwise endanger human life, like a nuclear meltdown. And we see what happened to those intruders mentioned earlier. 3 Fear agents stuck in the machine's grasp. If they initiate the robot's Noogie protocol, those guys are dead. They head to the chest where Linda's star technician is at work, And, not much of a surprise, that happens to be her son Buzz, who apparently doesn't recall living in the same facility as Johnny when they were younger. He does still keep in touch with his imaginary friend Gombo, the three-legged kangaroo. I hear he's a paralegal now. As for the intruders, interrogation will do no good. They have no idea why they're there, why they're dressed up in those suits, and one of them last remembers being at work. Their memories have been wiped thanks to implants that activated upon capture, which apparently happened with the fear goon Birdman rescued in issue 3. Though if one remembers being at work, and that work wasn't at Fear, does that mean they were abducted and forced to become evil minions? Or is his mind wiped to a time before he willingly joined up? And in either case, you'd think that they would have programmed the chips to prevent their goons from willingly surrendering. Meanwhile, Birdman is training Ty with his new powers, who's a tad overconfident as he dodges an energy blast, but it was a distraction for a large boulder to fall on him. He thinks he can hurl it back, or at least move it as he falls, but it ends up landing on him Wile E. Coyote style. Good thing for Bird's liability, Maitor survives to learn more of his limitations. Ray then tells him to make a clear distinction between his identities, going by his heroic moniker when he's transformed to keep on point. Ty reverts to his normal self, and says he still doesn't understand how a simple club could harness such immense power, as depicted in the cave paintings in issue 5. Ray is an archaeologist, so he can only speculate, but best guess is that the energy from the entity only affects living things, and while the club was organic, it wasn't alive. Cut off from its source, it accepted the original Maitor as its new wielder. But it's just a guess, meaning we don't have to commit to it if the writer comes up with a much cooler explanation later. However, the two aren't there simply for training and exposition. This was the same place where Birdman and Agent Sumati saw some fear goons get absorbed by Omnikron, and a new, larger vortex has appeared for them to monitor. Ty feels a force pulling the club closer to the phenomena, and that's when Omnikron shows up, demanding the return of its power, and looking like Jeff Goldblum had a teleporter mishap with a water bear. And Birdman figures now's a good time to skedaddle. Meanwhile, Jade covertly listens into Dr. Quest chewing out Zinn, whom he calls Archie despite apparent years of rivalry and villainous plots. Sure, he threatened kids with a bomb, but we should believe he wasn't going to let it detonate, despite, again, apparent years of rivalry and villainous plots. He just couldn't show weakness in front of fear lackeys, having to keep them thinking he's loyal to their leader. You know, the one that's under Zinn's mind control and even told his minions to treat the doctor's orders as if they were his own. He couldn't just make up a lie and say that threatening children was beneath fear or a waste of resources for their grand plan, something they'd be stupid enough to believe. On the other hand, there was that one dissenter who noticed something different about their mind-controlled leader, so maybe there's something to it. Anyway, Zinn explains how he learned about the entity from Jace.
He was rambling incoherently for a day. Something about blockchain and cryptocurrency, pronouncing those image loops as GIFs instead of GIFs. Utter nonsense, I tell you.
It may have been the result of some cerebral energy blast, something that would explain Jan's amnesia as well. For now, the young alien lad is calm and put on an IV, one that we don't see in panel, so must be hooked up to his foot.
Why would you think that's unnecessary?
Archimedes has pieced together how Omnicron takes over any living thing it touches, plant or animal, and can subsume an entire planet. It was fought back into a chasm by the Space Force and their energy blasts, apparently a key element in fighting it, at the cost of nearly everyone, but there happened to be subterranean life that Omnicron fed on to survive. Once it resurfaced, Space Ghost gathered other beings capable of fighting it, but by then, it'd learned a new trick, using its energy to form portals to traverse time and space and get to a new solar system. Instead of calling it destruction and assimilation, Omnicron prefers to think of it as gentrification. Creatures that have thus far exited previous vortexes had simply become separated, so Zinn's earlier plans of controlling the entity were doomed from the start. They don't have any samples of the creature to study, but one point of interest is the Phantom Cruiser, Space Ghost ship, apparently able to repair itself with healing tech.
And yet the local mechanic is still charging me for parts and labor. What's up with that?
Buzz shows off his lab to Johnny and the others, how he's working on his own robot, and we find Frankenstein Jr.'s brain in a jar awaiting a new body. The kid is despondent that he hasn't gotten much done in the months since his old chassis got destroyed, but Frankie's pretty chill about it, not being in any particular rush. With his neural net constantly active and news that Buzz's mom leaves on, he's been able to use a kind of imagination, envisioning images based on new data, recalling old memories, and sensing what other computers are working on, like a new energy signature picked up by on-site equipment.
But some stuff still confuses me. What does local singles in your area mean?
Turns out that Linda's been curious about the vortexes too, some of which seem to be experiencing a state of change. What, like portal puberty? Portberty? One of them is pulsating over the Hollywood Bowl, which is where Sumati had previously sent the Impossibles via text, presumably in between issues. It's here that their handler learns of their new addition, Cobalt, and cops and news crews are arriving to the scene. They're ordered to keep away from the potentially lethal energy, and the team heads out, with the blue newbie hoping to get hired if they survive.
Or if we get killed, maybe a paid internship?
They do keep the people at bay, but cops there haven't heard of internation and only know these guys from their kids' show. They try to say it's all part of an act they're setting up, and the officers just want to make sure they have the right permits instead of either arresting them or asking how they're pulling off their superpowers in front of them. Cobalt, whose emblem is pointed the wrong way, meaning the image may have accidentally been reversed, points out that the vortex is changing color.
They've gone to plaid.
They make their way on stage, reviewing their initial orders that anything emerging from the vortex may try absorbing anyone nearby. Something launches out and crashes in front of them, with Coil-Man already declaring victory like a putz. It's not a monster before them, but instead Space Ghost. Now he's going to be late for both Coast to Coast and Cartoon Planet. Issue number 8's cover sees Omnikron in the sky, I assume with diamonds, with the Impossibles covering a grounded Space Ghost who's either still exhausted from battle or just got back from a space bender. John and Jace are always arguing which one of them is the best sidekick, but you know what? Don't tell him. But the best sidekick is Blip. I'd kill for that little monkey. And Multiple Man now has a shield, which has appeared on one other cover but doesn't appear at all in story. Weird. The alternate cover, dynamically showing Ghost heading toward a hail of laser fire, as a slightly awkward pinning on of the superhero band in the corner, like a weird panel in panel, but also like they stepped through a portal at a really inconvenient moment and wonder if they should come back later. Ariel Olivetti takes over art, if the very different style wasn't an indication. Race, Deva, and Linda are taking off in the quest jet and leaving Johnny and the others behind. Sure, taking children into dangerous territory is old hat for the bodyguard, but the stakes are much higher now. As the plane flies off, Linda has left the spider sentries on patrol and locked the lab. However, Buzz has an idea to keep tabs on the adults, and knows how to get into the lab. But no explanation as to why they're at a farmhouse surrounded by grass, when previously they were in a remote desert lab on top of a cliff. Are they taking a cue from the Avengers and hiding from Omnikron with Hawkeye's family? Isn't Linda Cardellini busy enough with her own kids? One thing about this change in art is that Omnikron looks really cool. Sure, he's a ravenous horror seeking to assimilate all life into itself as it demands the return of its power from the club, but that's some nice detailing right there. Weird thing, Ty's the one telling Birdman's Eagle Avenger to stay back from the bigger version of the monster he previously thought. Except I don't recall Ty ever facing Omnikron before, so this bubble may be misattributed. However, the second one it's latched to definitely is Ty, as he struggles to keep hold of his cudgel. But I digress. Declaring no takebacks. Seriously, he and Snag transform instantaneously. No light show this time. Snag tries attacking the creature, but is pulled back by his master, and a warning shot from the winged hero. Ray, thank you! Birdman, we're on the clock! Yeah, you wouldn't want the space monster to learn your secret identity because he'll threaten to tell the whole world if you don't let him consume the whole world. I snark, but it's probably just to get Ty more accustomed to differentiating between his identities. While he tries contacting Falcon 7, Mitor takes out a face tentacle, feeling the power at his command, but pauses for a moment, as the background changes to something more prehistoric, with a dragon? Tiny T-Rex with wings? Birdman pulls him out of the monster's way. For a second,
I was somewhere else. I write Land Before Time fan fiction, and the chapter I'm working on now has given me serious writer's block. Do I give Littlefoot wings because he's evolving, or because I get him bit by a vampire? Which sounds better to you? Strangely enough, Omnicron retreats back into the vortex.
I'm gonna tell my big brother on you. He's got 7 black belts in super karate and is gonna kick your butt. I'm not crying, you're crying.
Picking up Birdman's report of the development, Linda doesn't think it's really good news. From her assessment, the monster is keeping its options open. It's closed its Utah portals because the arid climate didn't have enough life to build itself, just energy that was causing it harm. Readings indicate it's begun focusing on the vortex at the Hollywood Bowl.
The vortex monitor system. Omnicron is on the move.
Omnicron is on the move. Omnicron is loose. Dr. Zinn has attached a weapon to the now fully prepared Phantom Cruiser, intending to fly it and confront Omnicron, but the ship won't open for them, and that's where the unconscious Jace comes into play. As Benton puts on some unlocked cuffs and plays the unwilling captive, Archimedes orders a guard to escort them to the ship, saying he wants the two on board as he examines it. However, Quest's hammy acting aside, they don't make it, as they're held at gunpoint by 3 more Fear Goons, Jade, and Number 1, now free of Zinn's control, intending to make the traitor suffer before killing him. Turns out he just had a sticker on the back of his neck that said mind control, and Zinn was relying on the placebo effect this whole time. In Los Angeles, the Impossibles are understandably freaked out by the giant Brussels sprouts monster, and a weary Space Ghost warns them not to let it touch anyone. Fluid Man gets him out of the area to await medical care when Deva calls them with the same do not touch warning, adding not to call anyone in and to keep people out of the area. Unfortunately, 3 officers approach the monster and open fire, not listening to the team they think are merely performers. Still, Omnicron, having gotten his roughage from some nearby trees, changes the menu and devours the cops. Real shame. At the station they were known as the 3 Days from Retirement Gang. While I might have some nitpicks about how this issue's artist shows some faces, the work on Omnicron, for all its grotesque repugnance, is actually really stunning. It's unsettling, as intended, but also superb in execution, definitely worth admiring. The creature then targets the Impossibles, and they flee for their lives. And of course Fluid Man, half transformed, mentions he wet himself. Okay. In Kim-Conroy's lab, Buzz has found live webcam footage from the venue, and after they all share the same disgust at the creature, Jan's memory stirs, recalling her fight against Omnicron alongside Jace, Space Ghost, and the Galaxy Trio. She repeats stuff we've heard once or twice before, how dangerous the creature is, the warriors lost trying to kill it, etc. However, she adds how she and her brother, being trained to rebuild the Space Force, followed their mentor into hyperspace as he battled Omnicron, but for all their effort, it's arrived on Earth. Sending in the military will only give it more people to feed on, and Dr. Quest could solve it if he weren't all abducted and everything. But Johnny asks about Gargantuan, the giant robot they saw last issue. Buzz says the body is ready to go, but still requires a complex AI with appropriate protocols. So, in a light bulb moment, the young lad goes to grab the brain of Frankenstein Jr.
Frankie! Do you know where we could find a robot brain for a giant robot body?
In Utah, the vortex is shrinking, and knowing where the creature has gone, Birdman tells Mytor to fly there, which would take hours, but since lives are at stake and regardless of the risk, he and Avenger opt to take the vortex.
Moron!
As he and his feathery sidekick turn negative for a moment, Birdman senses he can feel time.
Maybe now I can figure out how to get my VCR to stop blinking 12. That mystery is the only reason I still have an outdated media player.
Turns out Mytor decided to follow him since he won't be getting a phone with a GPS until he turns 12. I guess his parents just expect him to get lost a lot. Fortunately, his super tutor can detect a distinct portion of the light spectrum their enemy gives off, and so they head in its direction. Yeah, these two can fly, but I imagine Snag's just gonna have to kind of doggy paddle through the endless void. And he's a giant cat, that's gotta be some kind of insult to him. When they start hearing voices, they begin following them and find Tara and the Herculoids, whom we haven't seen for several issues. Well, she can't blame her husband for not asking directions. She left him with their kid on Amzot. Since they're after the same enemy and confirming the threat it poses, they all make way through the void for Earth. Meanwhile, in Fear's evil lair, Number 1 has decided, rather than execution, Zinn will be brainwashed into an order-following drone, replacing Agent 66 that was lost a while back. Benton echoes the threat of the approaching creature, and Onesie decides he'll be the replacement chief scientist, working to stop Omnikron. After a few cities fall and the world gets desperate, whatever solution Quest comes up with, the cult leader will leverage for power.
What a sick mind! This is your world too!
It will really be my world if I hold out long enough. I figure I'll ask for complete global domination, but ditch some land in negotiations. So everyone thinks they're getting a better deal than they are. Though I'll give up Florida pretty quickly, so they may see right through me.
All of a sudden, Jezebel Jade knocks out Number 1 and takes out a couple guards. I guess the goon that was right next to Quest just moved away for no reason. Anywho, this is her 2 weeks' notice from Fear, and she intends to join the scientists, as they comically look like they just won big on The Price is Right. Zinn may be an amoral, power-hungry madman, but his surprisingly encyclopedic knowledge of retail prices really came in handy. After all, they just won a free spaceship. I guess we've kinda gotten an answer to an earlier question I had. If Fear goons are subject to mind alteration, I guess those brain implants reset them to their last save point, though it does beg the question how voluntary their membership is to begin with. Despite a couple fairly minor details and the head-scratching of going from a desert lab to a farmhouse with no explanation, the pacing has been better with a single chapter per issue instead of 2 shared stories. While I've liked the art in previous installments, I really dug Olivetti's art. The painted look and the attention to detail are great, especially for this interdimensional galactic creature as it starts chowing down on the planet. But what made Jade switch sides? How will Birdman and his new allies escape the void? And has anyone suggested Omnicron try out the keto diet or intermittent fasting? Tune in next week to find out. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.